No, please, I think there was a big misunderstanding. Please, I'm too weak. Just don't, no.
Hey, it's me, Greenbox. And you're probably wondering, why am I in a dark room with a pillowcase over my head, begging for my life? Well, my friend, that is a very, very long story. And we'll get to that, but first we gotta go where it all started. In a little hotel on the west side of Trinidad and Tobago called the Copacabana, where I served in the reception area with my best friend, Derek the Crocodile, where for the past 10 years, me and him have been working there together. With our very, very high standards of service and catering, me and him were the best steward, and we served our job with a lot of pride. But unfortunately, in sunny Copacabana, there was a dark side. And the reason why we got into this whole conundrum anyway, because my best friend Derek, who's been serving me for the past 10 years, has a dark side to him. Well, let's just say he's addicted to the devil's dandruff, where he becomes extremely irrational and violent. Extremely violent, in fact, which unfortunately resulted in him killing a man in a bar one night, which forced us to put me and him on the run to run out of Trinidad and Tobago and get on a boat to America. But while me and him were hiding in a closet, trying to flee the country while the Trinidad and Tobago police were on our tail, I thought of something. This kind of reminds me of the Grand Budapest Hotel. The Grand Budapest Hotel came out in 2014. It was directed by Wes Anderson and was produced by 21st Century Fox and got nominated for 9 Oscars, including Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Original Screenplay. But it also as well won Best Set and Best Score. The story of the Grand Budapest Hotel is a very simple one. It's about a lobby boy called Zero, played by Tony Ravolo and Murray F. Abraham. And he tells a story to a lucky author over dinner about his boss, Mr. M. Gustav, played by Ralph Fiennes, and their life on the run together. After Mr. Gustav was framed for the murder of his girlfriend, Madame D, played by Tilda Swinton. He is also set up and framed for stealing the patent Boy with Apple, but in his defense, Madame D did give it to him in the will, as it brought them so much joy together. Without going into any major spoilers, because I want you guys to watch this film after this video, Wes Anderson gives a very clear story for the Grand Budapest Hotel, which is quite uncommon for him because, he doesn't really give traditional A to B stories. He either goes down 2 routes. You got number 1 with the Royal Tenebus, which just feels more like a clip show, and you got path 2, which include movies like The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou or The Dajit Express Limited, which both have very clear point A to point B plots, with many sidetracks and diversions in the middle. I'm not saying this is a bad thing, because I like all 3 of these movies. I'm just very happy that we don't get sidetracked every 30 seconds in the Grand Budapest Hotel. It's just quite refreshing. But enough of the story, because I want you guys to watch this movie for yourself and see how truly good it is. So let's go on to the second section, the characters. In the Grand Budapest Hotel, there are 2 main characters, Zero and Mr. M. Gustav. Along with them, there are a bunch of side characters that don't get a lot of screen time but play major roles in the story, like Kovacs, played by Jeff Goldblum, Agatha, played by Sarois Roman, Dmitri, played by Adrian Brody, and finally, Jopling, played by Willem Dafoe. Before I talk about the 2 main characters, I'm going to have a quick lightning round of all the side characters that I'm going to talk about. Firstly, we got Agatha. In all scenes that Agatha's in, she is mainly surrounded by light, bright colours. This could show that she was very bright and very bubbly, and also as well, the light of Zero's life. We can also say that she was quite sweet, as she does work in a cake shop as well. Next up, you have Joplin. Joplin is a utter psychopath, and he mainly wears black. This could show that he's completely devoid of all character and emotion. He also as well takes great pleasure in hurting others and killing others, as we can see in that clip. And if Joplin's a psychopath, Dmitri is greedy, as this man lives his life on greed and revenge, as the whole purpose in this movie is to kill M. Gustav and get back Boy with Apple. He is the epitome of greed, and he will stop at nothing to accomplish his goals, going so far to even kill his own mother. In my opinion, he's one ruthless SOB. And Kovac is just a liar. But despite having nothing to talk about, this character still plays a major part in the movie, with him being one of the key characters in this movie. But there's nothing really to talk about it with him. The only thing you can comment on is he always wears a grey suit, which could show his moral ambiguity towards his job, as he is a lawyer who works for two psychopaths. But without further ado, let's go on to the two main characters, Mr. M. Gustav and Zero. Mr. M. Gustav, or as I like to call him, Gilf Hunter 69, is the main concierge at the Grand Budapest Hotel. The main way to describe him is classical, and he holds himself in a very high standard. We can also see he's a classy man because he reads lots of poetry. Another view people may have on Mr. M. Gustav is the fact that he is a professional. Take this scene for example. Mr. M. Gustav is standing straight, barely moving, unlike Zero, who's wobbling back and forward. The way he moves, the way he speaks, the way he grabs, the way he holds everything is done in a certain way to make him seem more professional upstanding. His clothes are always ironed and perfect, unlike Zero's lobby hat, which is slightly off to the side, and t-shirt slightly undone. We can also well see that Mr. M. Gustav knows the Grand Budapest Hotel like the back of his hand, as during this scene, Zero looks around, making sure he doesn't bump into anything or to anyone. Meanwhile, Mr. M. Gustav barely raises his head, looking straight down, and he does not bump into anyone. The only time he does look up is to point servants and give directions. Meanwhile, Zero, who is always looking around and walking very nervously. We also well know that loyalty is a big part of his character, as he is not afraid to back down from a fight, and always defends Zero, viewing him not as a colleague, but as a friend, and in some ways, a brother. Speaking of Zero, let's move on to Zero. The character Zero represents is us. He is a neutral character. The first time we see the Grand Budapest properly is in his eyes. He is us. He follows Mr. M. Gustav around on his wacky adventures. But he also is well super loyal to Mr. M. Gustav, as throughout the movie he fights and in fact even kills one person during the movie to protect and save Mr. M. Gustav. This relationship is basically the best part of the movie, in my opinion, with Zero being the Brian to Mr. M. Gustav's Peter, with Zero being the straight man and Mr. M. Gustav being the crazy one between them both. But throughout the movie, we do see Mr. M. Gustav rub off on Zero, with Zero becoming more posh and more elegant in the way he speaks. He starts to recite poetry and use fancy perfume given to him by Mr. M. Gustav, which it all comes full circle at the end. No spoilers. Now, with all the characters spoken about, the story said, now let's go on to the third and final main section, cinematography / editing / set design. I've all decided to lump them in together, as they are basically all the same and all have the same points to them that I want to talk about. If there's one thing Wes Anderson is famous for, is his famous symmetrical shots, and the Grand Budapest is filled with beautiful but yet symmetrical shots right down the middle. Another thing that's really great in this movie is the sets. The sets are the best thing about this movie, or one of the best things about this movie, with the Grand Budapest being a key example of this, with the Grand Budapest Hotel in the 1930s being filled with a bunch of rich pinks and purples that show royalty and how prestigious it is. Meanwhile, the Grand Budapest in the 1960s looks like a building I would find walking down the streets of my local town. You know, bland, distasteful, and, just plain ugly, The inside is also a great example, being filled with royal red, which truly shows how prestigious the place is, with rich plants and spas and sun baths, which back in the 1930s were very rare to come across, unlike the Grand Budapest in the 1960s, which is just filled with murky greys and yellows, and, not like, they don't stand out, they're just, like, murky and dark, and it doesn't pop out, just makes the place feel all dewy and drabid. But in my opinion, there's one scene that combines editing, cinematography, and set design perfectly, and that is the following scene with minor spoilers to the movie. So if you want to watch it, I'd say click off now in 3, 2, 1. The death of Kovac is a great scene. The context behind this scene is that Jeff Goldblum's character, Kovacs, is being hunted and will be eventually killed by Willem Dafoe's character, Kovacs. This thing I love about this scene, set design wise, is that it is very open. You know, Joplin hasn't closed in on Kovacs yet. He's just stalking him from a distance. So everything's open and wide. But the more and more you go in, the more closed it gets. But we'll come to that. But a thing I love about this scene, editorly, is that the transitions that come with Joplin and Kovacs search for one another. Sharp turns, closing in angles. But cinematography-wise, another thing I love about this scene is the set's open, but the camera's open, which makes Kovacs feel so small, but yet so free. But as the search goes on, the closer the camera gets. Another thing I love about this scene, right, is the fact that despite it being night, everything still starts bright, but as everything else, it gets smaller and darker. The camera becomes not still; it becomes more shaky. It truly makes feel that Kovacs is pinned up against the wall. He can't move. He can't breathe. Because Joplin now is closing in on him, and Kovacs knows he's probably gonna die soon, but he still tries to escape. As we see, he's surrounded by objects. He's running until Joplin catches him and kills him. And that's why I love this part. I think it combines Wes Anderson's three biggest strengths, in my opinion: cinematography, editing, and set design. It combines them all together into one perfect scene, where everything goes from open and light to dark and gloomy and close up. The camera's unstable. It goes from steady to shaky as Kovacs is trying to shake off Joplin. So, in conclusion, Your Honour, the Grand Budapest Hotel is a 10 out of 10 certified hood classic that I would tell anyone to watch, because I've barely scratched the surface on why this movie is so great. There's a reason it has been nominated for 9 Academy Awards, including Best Director and Best Original Screenplay. So, go and watch it for yourself, go and form your own opinion, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. By the way, I am sorry for not uploading for so long. I have been focusing on school and exams, so yeah, I'm sorry, but watch the next Greenbox video which comes out in 2023.